Hey there, Ken Clark here with the Get Your Fix team, the downtown realtor experts, and I'm also a public policy nerd. I came here to the George Washington Carver School with Marshall Shore to take a look at the history of the school, and thought I would also talk a little bit about how our school funding system now is a little bit of a vestige of the days of true inequality in schools, and I'd say those days are still here. I want to talk to you a little bit about how schools are funded. Not many people fully understand how schools are funded. Money comes from a bunch of different sources, but the most unequal source is property taxes. And I want to talk to you about why. It has to do with basic math of properties and how much they cost. So on my little poor man's Robert Reich presentation here, take a look at a situation where you have two equal districts, and each one of them has about 100,000 properties in them, okay? But one of them has an average of, well, let's see if I can keep that up on the thing. One of them has an average property value of $100,000. The other one has an average property value of $500,000. A really weird thing happens when you fund schools predominantly through property tax. What happens with these lower income areas? Well, same number of properties, they have less money overall in the total valuation of all those properties to be able to fund the school. But this crazy thing happens where in order to come up with the budget to build a school or build an addition or run the school, you still have to come up with a lot of money. That means you have a higher tax rate per property, okay, to come up with that money. But take a look at the richer area, $500,000 per property. There's more money overall. That means to get to that first amount of money to fix the school or repair the school or add to the school or whatever, they still need that amount of money, but it's a lower per property tax rate, if that makes sense, okay? So it's less of a burden. Paradoxically, they have more money, but they don't have to pay as much. And there's extra money for extras, like, hey, a brand new track with all the lights and scoreboards and things like that, which over here they just can't get. That's an inequity that's been around for a very, very long time in Arizona. So back in the 1990s, there was a lawsuit that was successful, and it was called, man, I'm going to lose all of my materials here. Okay, it was called Hull versus Albrecht, and it had to do with equal funding for facilities. This is the crazy thing that came out of that lawsuit. There's a huge inequity in school funding, not just for facilities, the buildings, but also maintenance and operations, right? But this lawsuit only said, hey, you're right, there is an inequity in funding, but only for facilities. And I won't go into why they said that, but I think they were wrong. But the result of that is that we created what's called the School Facilities Board, SFB. And you would think that that would solve the problem. The idea was every school is going to get the basics. Hey, there were schools in Arizona that didn't have air conditioning because they were so poor. So the School Facilities Board in the early 2000s came in, pretty much got everyone to the one standard. The problem is the legislature has failed to fully fund the School Facilities Board. From 2000 to today, estimates range from $500 million to over $1 billion that the legislature has failed to fund school facilities. So again, this is only one half of the problem, the facilities half, not the money going to the rest of the school. But even that is not being taken care of. There was a study from ASU in 2016 called the State of Latino Arizona. Now, I don't have data for African American students since we're in the Carver School, but this gives you a very good picture. What they showed here was that the higher the population of Latinos in a district, the less money there was in assessed valuation per pupil. Assessed valuation being the value assessed on these many properties here, okay? What that tells you is it's like 3 times as much money per pupil in wealthier areas than it is in poorer areas. And if that's not a clear inequity, I don't know what is. Now, luckily, the folks who did this lawsuit are now coming back with a new lawsuit saying the state has not fully funded it. But I submit to you, politics aside, party aside, if you want to support kids who have nothing to do with the world that they were born into and support their education, should we not look at this situation? And furthermore, should we not consider this when we think about places like the Carver School and think, are we not just doing the same thing over and over again? So, give us your comments. And if you want leads and ideas about how you can get involved in this conversation with the organizations who are working on it, put your thoughts down in the comments below. Thanks a lot.